You know, one of the problems that people who look at the suffering in Gaza and in Palestine in general, one of the problems people have, any person who is reasonably sympathetic to the plight of the Palestinians, and the big question that they sit with is, now how can a country that is so small, a population of something like 7 million Israelis, I don't know if that's all, the Jewish citizens. I think that might include 2 million Palestinian Israeli citizens also. But how can a small community of less than 7 million, how can they wield such immense pressure and power over the powerful Western nations? Now, these Western powers are powers that have been around for 5 centuries. If you go back to Western power, it probably goes back to the Spanish era. The Spanish conquests or the Portuguese conquests in the 1400s. And that was long before Israel or before Israeli world Jewry or Zionism really became a factor. And so the question that people often grapple with and that they can't really figure out is, how come this country has so much power? And then the explanations would generally be that, what we have here is sort of an alignment of interests. That America needs Israel to look out for its interests out there in the Middle East. But America can have no more loyal friends than Saudi Arabia, than Jordan. The Queen Mother of Jordan is a British citizen, is a British woman. The Egyptian president, these people were recruited by the CIA. They were people who were very close with the West. The Saudi family, they are the children of people who fought with the British against the Turks, and they are comrades in battle. The old King Saud, the father of the current king. And so the Arabs are very, very, very close to the West, to the Anglo-American kind of axis of power globally. And so really to say that, America really needs Israel as an outpost out there in the Middle East could not be really the answer to the question. Because the power that Israel wields in America is extremely powerful. So and people will come and say, look, it's the lobby power, it's the power of AIPAC. And it's the money, it's the millions that AIPAC assigns or allocates to senators and to members of the House. And really, if you look at the amount of money that AIPAC puts in, which the last time I looked were a couple of million, maybe $20-30 million, it can impossibly be that kind of money. The Saudis could take that money probably out of their back pocket, any of these big Saudi princes and kings, or any of these Gulf Arabs. So the money that AIPAC spends on senators and House representatives is really a drop in the bucket. So the question remains, if Israel is not an outpost for America, really, if they don't really need Israel as an outpost, if Israel is not really bribing America to that extent, then what is it? Now, there's another theory, and this is very, very plausible, and that is the honeypot theory. And that is that Israel has made it its job to spy on senior, powerful, elected representatives in America, the Epstein operation, where Israel made it a job to find dirt on all these big guns, and like all of them, the major ones, and they've sort of seduced them, or enticed them with young girls, and with all other sorts of enticements to put them in a compromising position, have the video recordings ready, and basically blackmail them. Pretty much as we know with the recent resignation of the vice chancellor of Harvard University, the lady, what is her name? I think her surname is Gay, if I'm not mistaken. So she learned the hard way that they have dirt on you, which they won't use unless you force them to use it. So yes, it's all of the above, but also none of the above, because the amount of power is just simply too long-term and too permanent and too complete over both parties. You know, in a recent vote in the House of Representatives, I think the entire House voted in favor of Israel, with the exception of only one senator, I believe from Kentucky. Thank God there's one House representative. And thank God for that one single representative that prevents 100% from American elected officials from being servants to Israel. So the question still remains, what is this power that Israel wields? And in previous videos, I've advanced my understanding that I base on the facts. And if I look at the facts around the world, there's very few even enlightened, even anti-Zionist Jews, including the South African government, who's so enlightened, who have taken Israel to the International Court of Justice. All of these people, even many of the alternative media, will not mention this particular power which Israel wields over America. And I've mentioned it in previous videos, and I'm going to repeat it again. The Israeli control over America is not in the form of a lobby. It's not in the form of a lobby. It's in the form of a lord and servant relationship. Israel, by virtue of its ultra-rich and powerful benefactors within the Jewish community, because the Jewish community is a diverse community. They're not all the same. There are many anti-Zionist Jews, there are Nature Carte, but there is a group from amongst that global Jewry who is less Jewish and more satanic. And yes, you're going to question me and say, but this is taking it to the level of being a conspiracy, a ridiculous conspiracy. My friends, if you don't believe that there's something called evil in the world, then I don't think you've really studied the world in any shape or form. There is a thing called evil. There is evil for the sake of evil. And I'm not talking about interest. I'm not talking about having ridiculous or vulgar or immoral values. I'm talking about evil for the sake of evil. And there is that within that community. And it comes from being very powerful and reaching the point of developing a God complex. A God complex where you decide that right and wrong is no longer what is objectively determinable by people, or right and wrong is no longer what is determinable in the Holy Scriptures, but right and wrong is what you say it is. That is what right and wrong is. And if we look at the background to Israel, the founding of the State of Israel, it emerges, the idea of Israel in modern times emerges from atheistic Jews who were in the 1800s infatuated with nationalism, European nationalism, who were drunk on imitating and copying the naked nationalism and fascism and colonialism which was embodied in Europe of the 1800s. You see, the Europe of the 1800s is the Europe of Nietzsche. It's the Europe of the Ubermensch. The Ubermensch is the man God. The man God is in vogue in the 1800s. When Friedrich Nietzsche writes his books, the people who were also infatuated, also mesmerized by the Ubermensch concept, by the all-powerful man, the conquering man, the immortal man, were people like Adolf Hitler, were people like Mussolini, Benito Mussolini. And we see these crazed despots emerging out of the thinking and the ideas that circulated in the 1800s. And with that, the scramble for Africa, the colonizing instinct of the white man, the racism that comes with that Ubermensch concept, because now, you see, the Ubermensch has to come from the Uber tribe, from the greatest tribe, and the great man can only emerge from the great tribe. And so that, my friends, is really what we need to explore. We cannot leave the issue of Israel just like a random occurrence, like a lucky outcome of the Second World War. No, so what you have is you have the Zionists of Europe emerging from this world, from this nationalistic, tribalistic, Ubermensch kind of thinking of the 1800s. And as Europe becomes successful, and as Germany re-emerges and re-establishes itself, and as France becomes powerful again, and as Britain becomes powerful over the decades in the 1800s, so this Zionist movement actually grows and grows and grows. And those who have accumulated enormous wealth in Europe, the banking dynasties of Europe, which basically can be reduced to one very serious and powerful banking dynasty, the Rothschild family. A transnational dynasty, a dynasty of bankers belonging to the Jews of Frankfurt and Germany, emerging from the ghettos of Frankfurt and Germany, and Hesse, Kassel, and all these Jewish, what they used to refer to as ghettos of Europe. They emerge, and with a vengeance, for years of being subdued, being counted as second-class citizens within Europe, they emerge, and they come with an absolute hunger for rivaling and becoming more powerful than even the princes who called on them for loans and for financing of their wars. And so these big princes of Germany and the princes of Orange and even the King of England, they actually become the tools by which this family re-establishes itself and become more powerful. So it is no surprise, and I've done a video on this, that when Sir Balfour, one of the ministers in the war cabinet during the First World War of Britain, in the middle of a war, writes a letter to the one of the senior members of the Rothschild banking dynasty. He writes a letter to him, and that letter is a pledge that Britain would see to it that Palestine becomes the home for the Jews of Europe, the Jews of the world, in fact. So the power of Israel was born out of the banking dynasties of Europe. Israel was created by the Rothschild dynasty. Israel is not a chance occurrence. It was conceived of by Zionists. And at first the Rothschilds were not Zionist, but they were dependent on legitimacy from Zionists who had slowly become synonymous with Judaism. You see, it's like the Muslims today. You find that Wahhabism, the ideas of Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab, the corrupt ideas of this great ignorant man from Arabia, his ideas become mainstream in the Muslim world now. And if you're not a Wahhabi, or if you don't uphold Salafist, Wahhabist ideas, you're slowly becoming the minority. And so you find so many prominent Muslim leaders coming around and caving in and adopting Wahhabi Salafist, a Wahhabi Salafist perspective of Islam. And that's exactly what happened with Zionism. Zionism became the de facto mainstream way of thinking within Judaism. There were always an outside group. There was always dissenting groups within Judaism. But that is how the 1800s progressed, and that is how we got into the 1900s with with Israel then firmly on the agenda. Now, you might ask what happened to this dynasty over the years. Did they disappear? What happened to the Rothschilds, the dynasty that sponsored all of the kings, all of the princes of the 1800s Europe? What happened to them? Nothing happened with them. They went mainstream, as did Zionism. They went into the mainstream of Western business, Western economic, Western culture. And you find today that the newspaper industry, the media conglomerates, the banking, the subdivisions of you see the subsidiary banks, the lesser banks, the subsidiary investment houses, the venture capitalists, those who have seeded the formation of Google, those who have seeded the formation of private airlines, those who have seeded the formation of the new tech universe that we experience today, whether it's Facebook. The Rothschilds, that powerful empire, has moved out of banking and into all other industries, all other sectors of Western society or the Western economy. And they maintain a de facto cultural grip over that society. My friends, you know what? I am a business owner, and I have owned businesses where I have had a number of employees in my employ. I paid their salaries. It wasn't a big business, but I had at one stage more than 20 or 30 people. I'm now involved in organizations where we have a number of people in our employ. And I can tell you one thing. The most powerful grip you can have over a person is not being their father, not being their brother, not being their priest. It is being their paymaster. That is the most powerful control you can wield over people, is to pay their wages, to be there for them at the end of the month, to make sure that they can feed their families. And that, my friends, is the power that these super powerful industrialists, capitalists, financiers, bankers, that is the power that they wield. They don't wield it through a name, Rothschild. They wield it through newspapers, the New York Times, the Washington Post. They wield it through popular television networks in Hollywood and in the news world. They wield it through AP, Associated Press. They wield it through Reuters. They wield it through CNN, through Fox News. I mean, just if you look at what Kanye West got in trouble for, was because he exposed it. He showed what is going on. He gave the names of all the important directors. And so that, my friends, if you divorce the problem of Israel from the problem of centralized fiefdom, this fiefdom that controls the entire world, pharmaceutical companies, media, tech, you should not separate Israel from what is going on, from the centralized lordship and fiefdom that is controlling you, my friends. And if you're not a Palestinian, you might actually be more lucky than you might actually be less fortunate than the Palestinians. The Palestinians, at least, they know their enemy. They see him. They see the ugly face of Zionism. You, my friend, are not even aware of the ugly face of Zionism. All you feel is a slow eroding of your moral values, a slow erosion of your currency, a slow erosion of your safety and your security. You experience the slow strangulation of the serpent. Palestinians, they feel the devouring of the hyena. But both of you are under attack from the same quarters, my friends. And that, if you do not see it like that, you will never understand it. Israel's power over Palestine, over America, over Britain, is the Zionist control over the economy, over the culture, over the finances, over the banking systems of the West. And it's not easy to release that grip, because that grip is more than a financial grip. It is a cultural grip. It is a religious grip, because over time they have entered the religious establishment, the Baptist churches of America. They've entered the political arena. They have decided what is good speech and what is off limits, you see. And so that is the problem that we all face. It's not a Palestinian problem, it's a global problem. The problem of Palestine, if you try to make it a problem for the United Nations and a problem for the International Court of Justice, you will never get a solution. But if you see it as a problem of global oppression, of global evil, of global exploitation, of global slavery, of global hijacking of culture, religion, of everything. And I'm not anti-Semitic. If these were the Salafist Arabs that were in that same position today, in fact, I will call it out. And I do call it out when it comes to Muslims. And so I'm calling it out to you, and I'm telling you that is really what is going on. It's an all connected, integrated problem. Now you might ask me, but Anwar, why would they, if they're so powerful, create such bad publicity for themselves? Why would they create such bad publicity for themselves? Now, I want to point you to a book that was written by George R.R. Martin, the author George R.R. Martin, called A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, this book was dramatized into a television series, right? And the television series was called Game of Thrones, right? Very popular HBO television series. And there's a character, now the elite, the most powerful group within this Game of Thrones is maybe roughly 6 or 7 empires or nations with that form part of the Game of Thrones, right? But probably the senior elite one that really has a sort of an indirect suzerainty or control or hegemony over the other nations is called the Baratheon family. Now in the series, the Baratheon family, they are the top dogs. And they're the elite, you see, and they all white, so there's a couple of points that are made within the series, right? So there's the racial element that goes with them. They like the super blonde or whitish kind of people, and they're really the most powerful. But they're an extremely arrogant, proud, and I would say self-indulgent kind of group. Like, for example, the two main characters are a brother and a sister within this family. And these two have an incestuous relationship, right? So a brother and a sister, and they bear a couple of children. And I'm coming to the issue of Israel now. And what I want to say is I want to draw an analogy between that family and what I'm talking to you about now, global Zionism and Israel. Now, those two, this brother, the sister, they spawn a few children, between them, and the children come out, the one child comes out almost like extremely evil, sadistic. He's called Joffrey. But nobody can touch Joffrey because Joffrey is theirs. And Joffrey, no matter how evil he is, no matter how sadistic he is, no matter how immoral Joffrey is, no matter how fascist, how narcissistic Joffrey is, because Joffrey is all of the evil that a human can possess in one: sadistic, fascist, narcissistic. And this character then, Joffrey, he becomes the king. And as expected, when he becomes king, he's completely random in his cruelty. Like, his poor wife comes from another family, and he abuses this poor woman. He has her beaten up. He's his people, his servants, he becomes the most grotesque, abominable king. The point I'm trying to make is, you are evil, you disgusting, you sadistic, you are narcissistic, but you are ours. And if we compromise you, we compromise ourselves. So you, in all your evil, in all your sadism, in all your disgusting what you are, our arrogance precludes us from anyone touching you. You are our Joffrey. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? This is Israel, my friends. It's a matter of pride. It's a matter of personal importance to the global Zionists. That Israel will be there. Israel will be ugly. Israel will be a monster. Israel can kill. Israel has license to kill even child sacrifice. 10,000, 20,000, doesn't matter. Because Israel is ours, and you all, you belong to us. It's almost the final statement of arrogance. And now I want you to see what I mean by pure evil. That is what I mean by pure evil. And my friends, that is what we deal with. Now, I want to continue now, and then I might break it up into 2 episodes, but I want to go into the solace, the comfort that the Quran brings within the story. And I hope that clarifies to you why Israel is able to be so powerful, the International Court of Justice, because the UN is bankrolled by these guys. We know that arch-Zionist, the tech billionaire Bill Gates, is one of the main funders to the World Health Organization, and is also a businessman who funds, who thrives from selling medicine to the masses. You see, so through Moderna, where he's invested, they sell medicine. And how you're the funder of the United Nations, as well as somebody who actually are under the policy created by the United Nations. It's very clear why the United Nations will be subservient to people like this. Now we can do the same for agriculture, for financing, you see. And so the Palestinians really, but you see, they are unfortunately the people, you know, when you look at Aztec America, the guys whose heads were chopped off from those pyramids, who were massacred, sacrificed to the gods, they didn't really hate those guys, but it was just necessary for them to die for the glory of the priests and the kings. And today, it's not really that the Palestinians have done anything wrong, but somebody's got to pay for Israel to thrive and to exist. And the unfortunate thing is the Palestinians, they are Muslim. They are the ones that will have to take the chop and face the music. Their children, their women, anyone there. But as I said, the Quran brings massive comfort in this situation. And I'll play the next episode either back to back with us, and then or run it as a separate one. Alhamdulillah.